April 19th, 1995, 9:02 a.m., downtown Oklahoma City. A yellow Ryder truck parks in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. The driver gets out, walks away. 90 seconds later, the truck explodes. 4,800 pounds of ammonium nitrate fertilizer mixed with racing fuel. A bomb so powerful it tears the entire front off a 9-story building. The blast is felt 55 miles away. It registers 3.0 on seismographs. 168 people die instantly or in the hours that follow. 187 are children. 19 children in the America's Kids Daycare Center on the second floor are killed immediately. Some of their bodies are never found. Over 680 people are injured. It's the deadliest domestic terrorist attack in American history. Within 90 minutes, Oklahoma Highway Patrol stops a car heading north, out of the city. The driver is Timothy McVeigh. He's driving without license plates. He's carrying a loaded pistol. He's arrested on weapons charges, not knowing investigators are already connecting him to the bombing. Within hours, the FBI traces the truck's axle fragment found in the rubble back to a Ryder rental agency in Junction City, Kansas. The owner, Eldon Elliott, identifies the renter from a photo lineup, Timothy McVeigh. He rented the truck 2 days before the bombing under the alias Robert Kling. But Elliott tells investigators something else, something crucial. McVeigh wasn't alone. There was another man with him, younger, stockier, dark hair, a companion Elliott had never seen before and couldn't identify. The FBI creates a composite sketch based on Elliott's description and descriptions from other witnesses. They designate McVeigh as John Doe No. 1. The unidentified companion becomes John Doe No. 2. The sketch is broadcast nationwide. The manhunt begins. The FBI announces they're searching for 2 suspects, McVeigh in custody, John Doe No. 2 at large, and considered armed and dangerous. And then something strange happens. Within days, the FBI announces there is no John Doe No. 2. The witnesses were mistaken. They confused him with another customer at the rental agency who had nothing to do with the bombing. McVeigh acted with only one accomplice, Terry Nichols, who wasn't even in Oklahoma City on the day of the bombing. The search for John Doe No. 2 is quietly dropped. The composite sketch disappears from newscasts. The FBI focuses exclusively on McVeigh and Nichols. 2 men, that's it. Case closed. But 24 witnesses reported seeing McVeigh with an unidentified companion in the days before the bombing. Security footage showed multiple people around the Ryder truck. Physical evidence suggested the bomb was too sophisticated for 2 amateur bombers to construct alone, and everyone who kept asking about John Doe No. 2 found their questions dismissed, their credibility attacked, their careers destroyed. Timothy McVeigh was executed in 2001. He died without explaining who helped him. Terry Nichols is serving life without parole. He's tried to tell investigators about others involved. Nobody wants to listen. Because John Doe No. 2 leads somewhere the government doesn't want to go. This is the story of the unsolved mystery at the heart of America's worst domestic terror attack. The story of the man who disappeared from the investigation. The story of John Doe No. 2. Let's start with what we know for certain and what doesn't make sense. Timothy McVeigh was born in upstate New York in 1968. He was an average kid, not particularly bright, not troubled. He joined the Army in 1988 and served in the Gulf War. He was a good soldier. He earned a Bronze Star. He tried out for Special Forces but washed out. After leaving the Army in 1991, McVeigh drifted. He worked odd jobs. He became increasingly radical in his anti-government views. He was angry about Ruby Ridge, where federal agents killed a woman and child during a siege in 1992. He was enraged by Waco, where federal agents stormed the Branch Davidian compound in Texas in 1993, resulting in 76 deaths. McVeigh believed the federal government was tyrannical. He believed armed resistance was necessary. He decided to strike back. He chose April 19th, the anniversary of the Waco fire, as his date. He chose the Murrah Building because it housed federal offices, including the ATF, the agency involved in Waco. McVeigh recruited Terry Nichols, an Army buddy who shared his anti-government views. Together, they planned the bombing. They bought ammonium nitrate fertilizer. They stole explosives from a quarry. They mixed the bomb in Nichols' Kansas farmhouse. They loaded it into the Ryder truck. On April 19th, McVeigh drove the truck to Oklahoma City and detonated it. That's the official story. Two men, McVeigh and Nichols. Nichols built the bomb. McVeigh delivered it. Simple. But the evidence doesn't support that simple story. First problem. Terry Nichols wasn't in Oklahoma City on April 19th. He was at home in Kansas. Multiple witnesses place him there. Phone records confirm it. The FBI admits Nichols wasn't physically present at the bombing. So, if McVeigh didn't act alone and Nichols wasn't there, who was with McVeigh? Second problem. Multiple witnesses saw McVeigh with other people in the days before the bombing. In Junction City, Kansas, where McVeigh rented the truck. In Oklahoma City, where he scouted the target. At various locations where bomb components were purchased. These weren't random sightings. These were credible witnesses who saw McVeigh with unidentified companions. Eldon Elliott, the Ryder rental agent, insisted until his death that McVeigh was with another man when he rented the truck. Elliott described the man in detail. Stocky build, dark hair and eyebrows, baseball cap. The man said nothing during the transaction but stood nearby the entire time. Elliott was so certain about this man that he worked with FBI sketch artists to create the John Doe No. 2 composite. He identified this man from the sketch when it was shown to him later. He never wavered in his account. But the FBI eventually told Elliott he was wrong. They said the man he remembered was actually a man named Todd Bunting, an Army private who had rented a truck from Elliott the day after McVeigh. Elliott was just confused about the dates. Elliott rejected this explanation. He insisted he remembered both transactions. He remembered Bunting, and Bunting looked nothing like John Doe No. 2. He remembered the man with McVeigh, and that man was never identified. Other witnesses supported Elliott's account. Employees at a Junction City McDonald's reported seeing McVeigh with a stocky, dark-haired man matching the John Doe No. 2 description. Witnesses at a motel in Junction City saw McVeigh with two other men. Witnesses in Oklahoma City reported seeing multiple people around the Ryder truck before the bombing. The FBI dismissed all these witnesses. They attributed the sightings to confusion, misidentification, or attention-seeking. But that's 24 separate witnesses, all describing the same thing. McVeigh had help from people who were never identified. Third problem, the bomb was too sophisticated. McVeigh and Nichols were not bomb experts. They had some military training with explosives, but nothing approaching the knowledge needed to construct a 4,800-pound ANFO bomb that would precisely destroy a reinforced concrete building. The bomb required specific ratios of ammonium nitrate to fuel. It required proper placement of boosters and detonators. It required knowledge of blast physics and structural engineering. McVeigh and Nichols had none of this expertise. Some explosives experts who examined the evidence concluded the bomb showed signs of professional design. The placement, the power, the precision. This wasn't two amateurs mixing fertilizer. This was someone who knew what they were doing. Where did that expertise come from? McVeigh claimed he learned everything from The Turner Diaries, a racist novel about right-wing terrorists. But that book contains no specific bomb-making instructions. It's fiction, not a technical manual. Did McVeigh and Nichols get help from someone with explosives expertise? The FBI says no, but they never adequately explained how two men with minimal training built one of the most destructive truck bombs in history. Fourth problem, the seismograph readings. On the morning of April 19th, seismographs at the Oklahoma Geological Survey recorded unusual readings. The first event. Then, 10 seconds later, a second event. Two distinct seismic signatures. Dr. Charles Mankin, director of the survey, examined the data. He concluded there had been two separate explosions, 10 seconds apart. He briefed the FBI on his findings. The FBI dismissed his conclusion. They said the second reading was the building collapsing, not a separate explosion, but Mankin insisted the signatures were distinct. Both showed the characteristics of explosions, not structural failure. Other seismologists reviewed the data. Some agreed with Mankin. Two explosions, but their findings were ignored. The official story remained. One bomb, one explosion. Anything else was mistaken interpretation. But if there were two bombs, that changes everything. It means McVeigh didn't act alone. Someone else planted a second device, someone who was never identified, someone the FBI doesn't want to acknowledge. Fifth problem, witness reports of additional bombs. In the immediate aftermath, multiple law enforcement officials reported discovering additional explosive devices inside the Murrah Building. These reports were broadcast on live television. A local news station broadcast footage of bomb squad technicians removing what appeared to be additional bombs from the building. An ATF agent is on video saying they found two more devices. Police radio traffic from that morning discusses additional explosives, but within hours, those reports disappeared. The FBI announced there was only one bomb. The news station stopped mentioning additional devices. The bomb squad technicians were never interviewed again. The reports were officially dismissed as confusion in the chaos, but multiple trained law enforcement officers reported seeing additional bombs. Police and fire personnel don't confuse rubble with explosive devices. If they said they found bombs, they probably found bombs. So what happened to those devices, and why were the reports suppressed? These 5 problems point to the same conclusion. Timothy McVeigh didn't act alone. He had help beyond Terry Nichols. Help from people who were never identified, people who may still be free. People the FBI stopped looking for after the first week of the investigation. Why would the FBI stop looking for John Doe number 2 if they believed he existed? Why would they dismiss 24 witnesses? Why would they ignore evidence of multiple bombs and sophisticated bomb design? The answer might lie in who John Doe number 2 was, or who he might have been connected to. Because there are theories, disturbing theories that suggest this wasn't just two right-wing extremists acting alone. Theories that suggest connections to groups the FBI was infiltrating, monitoring, and perhaps manipulating. Let's talk about Elohim City, a white supremacist compound in eastern Oklahoma, a gathering place for neo-Nazis, Christian identity extremists, and anti-government militants, a place the FBI had infiltrated with informants. Timothy McVeigh called Elohim City 2 weeks before the bombing. Phone records prove this. He spoke to the compound security chief, Andreas Strassmayer, a German national with military training. Strassmayer was exactly the kind of person who could have provided the explosives expertise McVeigh lacked. He had served in the German army. He had weapons training, and he was living in a compound dedicated to preparing for war against the U.S. government. After the bombing, the FBI questioned Strassmayer. Then they let him leave the country. He returned to Germany and was never charged. The FBI said he had nothing to do with the bombing, but witnesses placed McVeigh at Elohim City in the weeks before April 19th. They saw him meeting with Strassmayer and other compound members. They saw him discussing plans. The FBI investigated these reports and concluded they were unfounded, but they never adequately explained why McVeigh called Elohim City or what was discussed. More disturbing is the role of Carol Howe, an ATF informant who infiltrated Elohim City in 1994. She reported to her ATF handlers that compound members were discussing plans to bomb federal buildings. She specifically reported conversations about bombing the Murrah Building in Oklahoma City. Her reports were made months before the bombing. The ATF had advance intelligence that someone connected to Elohim City was planning to attack that specific target. And they did nothing. No increased security, no surveillance, no warning. After the bombing, Carol Howe told investigators she recognized some of the John Doe descriptions as matching men from Elohim City. She said she could identify potential co-conspirators. The FBI wasn't interested. Instead, the ATF turned on Howe. They prosecuted her on minor explosives charges. She was acquitted, but her credibility was destroyed. She went into hiding. Her testimony about Elohim City connections was buried. Why would the FBI and ATF ignore an informant who had provided advance intelligence about the bombing target and claim to know additional conspirators? Unless they had a reason to keep those connections hidden. Unless investigating Elohim City would reveal something embarrassing or worse. The possibility that haunts this case is that the FBI or ATF might have had informants or provocateurs involved with the bombing plot, that they might have known about the plan and allowed it to proceed, not necessarily intentionally, but through incompetence, bureaucratic failure, or a sting operation that went horribly wrong. This sounds like conspiracy theory, but we know for certain that the FBI had informants in white supremacist groups in the 1990s. We know they ran provocateur operations. We know they sometimes lost control of those operations. If John Doe number 2 was an FBI informant or provocateur, that would explain everything. Why the search was dropped, why witnesses were dismissed, why evidence was ignored. Because Acknowledging John Doe number 2's existence would mean acknowledging FBI involvement or foreknowledge, and that's politically impossible. Timothy McVeigh went to trial in 1997. He was convicted and sentenced to death. His trial focused narrowly on his actions. The question of accomplices beyond Nichols was barely addressed. The defense wasn't allowed to present evidence about additional bombers or FBI infiltration of extremist groups. Terry Nichols was tried separately and also convicted. He received life without parole. During his trial and in subsequent years, Nichols has tried to tell investigators that others were involved. He's claimed that he and McVeigh received help from people he can't or won't name. Nobody has seriously investigated his claims. In the years before his execution, McVeigh gave several interviews. He was asked repeatedly about accomplices. He was asked about John Doe number 2. His answers were evasive. Sometimes he suggested there were others. Sometimes he claimed to have acted alone. He seemed to be playing games, hinting at secrets he would never reveal. On June 11, 2001, Timothy McVeigh was executed by lethal injection at the federal penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. He was 33 years old. He died without naming accomplices. He took his secrets to the grave. His final statement was a handwritten copy of the poem Invictus. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Defiant to the end, no apology, no remorse, no explanation. After McVeigh's execution, some investigators hoped Terry Nichols would talk. He had nothing to lose. He was already serving life without parole. But Nichols remained mostly silent. When he did speak, his statements were vague. He suggested others were involved but wouldn't provide names or details. In 2004, Nichols was tried on state charges in Oklahoma. During that trial, he told his lawyers that additional conspirators existed. His lawyers petitioned to depose witnesses and investigate these claims. The court denied the requests. The judge ruled that the question of additional conspirators was irrelevant to Nichols's guilt. So the question remains: who was John Doe number 2? The evidence suggests he existed. Multiple witnesses, security footage showing multiple people, phone records connecting McVeigh to extremist networks, evidence of sophisticated bomb design, seismic data suggesting multiple explosions. But the FBI says he doesn't exist, that all the witnesses were wrong, that McVeigh and Nichols acted alone, that any evidence suggesting otherwise is misinterpreted or mistaken. Which story do you believe? 24 witnesses describing the same unidentified man, or the FBI saying those 24 people were all wrong? The Oklahoma City bombing killed 168 people. 19 of them were children under the age of 6. They died in a daycare center on the second floor of the building. They were coloring and playing when the bomb exploded. Most of their bodies were unrecoverable from the rubble. Their families deserve the truth, all of it. Not a sanitized version that protects government agencies from embarrassment. Not a simplified story that ignores inconvenient evidence. If John Doe number 2 exists, he's gotten away with mass murder. If he was an FBI informant or provocateur, the FBI is complicit in 168 deaths. If the bombing could have been prevented with competent intelligence work, then government agencies failed catastrophically. The Murrah Building site is now a memorial. The Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum opened in 2000. It's a beautiful, solemn place. 168 empty chairs representing the victims, a reflecting pool, a survivor tree. Thousands of people visit each year to pay respects and remember. But the memorial doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't mention John Doe number 2. It doesn't mention the 24 witnesses who were dismissed. It doesn't mention the evidence that was ignored. It tells a simple story: McVeigh and Nichols, two extremists. Justice served. The real story is more complicated, and it's unfinished, because John Doe number 2 was never found. The questions were never answered. The investigation was shut down before the truth was revealed. April 19th, 1995. 9:02 a.m., a truck bomb explodes in downtown Oklahoma City. 168 people die. The FBI says 2 men were responsible: Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. Both captured. Both convicted? Case closed. But 24 witnesses say there was a third man, an unidentified accomplice, a phantom who disappeared from the investigation as mysteriously as he appeared in the witness statements. John Doe. Number 2, the man the FBI says doesn't exist. The man witnesses say they saw with McVeigh in Junction City at the motel near the Ryder truck. Who was he? Where did he go? Why did the FBI stop looking for him? We don't know. The investigation is officially closed. The files are sealed. The witnesses have been silenced by time, by intimidation, by the simple fact that nobody wants to hear their stories anymore. Timothy McVeigh is dead. Terry Nichols will die in prison. Eldon Elliott, the rental agent who saw John Doe number 2, is dead. Carol Howe, the informant who warned about Elohim City, has disappeared into witness protection or hiding. The people who could tell the truth are gone or silenced. The evidence that could prove conspiracy has been lost, destroyed, or classified. What remains are questions, unanswered questions. Questions about the man who stood beside Timothy McVeigh in Junction City, Kansas on April 17, 1995. Questions about who helped build the bomb. Questions about who knew the plan and did nothing to stop it. Those questions will probably never be answered, not officially, because answering them would require admitting that the official story is incomplete, that the investigation was flawed, that justice wasn't fully served. The Oklahoma City bombing is supposed to be solved. The perpetrators were caught, tried, and punished. The case is closed. But 168 people are still dead. 19 children are still dead. And John Doe number 2 is still out there, somewhere, living under a different name, carrying the secret of what really happened on that April morning. Or maybe he's dead too. Maybe he met the same fate as people who know too much in cases like this. Maybe his silence was guaranteed permanently. We'll probably never know, because this case is closed. The evidence is sealed. The witnesses are dismissed. The questions are ignored. But the questions don't go away. Who was John Doe number 2? Why did the FBI stop looking for him? What are they hiding? Those questions haunt Oklahoma City. They haunt the families of the victims. They haunt anyone who looks closely at the evidence and realizes the official story doesn't add up. April 19th, 1995. The day America learned that domestic terrorism could kill on a massive scale. The day 168 people died. The day justice was supposed to be served, but justice requires truth. Complete truth, not convenient truth, not politically acceptable truth, the whole truth. And we still don't have it. because John Doe number 2 remains a mystery, the unsolved mystery at the heart of America's deadliest domestic terror attack. The man who was there, the man witnesses saw, the man the FBI says doesn't exist. He's out there somewhere, or his grave is, and with him are the answers to questions nobody wants to ask anymore. Who really bombed Oklahoma City? Timothy McVeigh, Terry Nichols, and John Doe number 2. Whoever he was, wherever he is, the truth is buried, with the victims, with the secrets, with the answers nobody wants to hear. 168 people deserve better. They deserve the truth, all of it, no matter where it leads, no matter who it implicates. But 30 years later, we're still waiting, still asking, still wondering about the man who disappeared from history. John Doe number 2, the ghost of Oklahoma City, the unsolved mystery that won't go away.